afternoon, Brother Lovejoy. It's such a delight to have you here with me today. For those who are watching, Brother Lovejoy is going to introduce himself in a moment, but I just want to welcome you all back to Around the Word and Back with Dr. Alice Farrell. As you all know, I'm very much conscious about institutional racism, systemic and structural oppression, the disparities and the inequities. And as I go around, I have a few questions that I ask individuals, but I also enjoy hearing about the work that they're doing in the community and love to celebrate their work. So with that said, I am celebrating Brother Kelvin Lovejoy today as he's going to introduce himself. And let me just say this, you're in for a treat. The reason I say that is because his introduction, earlier today I had a conversation with him and he started off by sharing his many hats. So I'm going to let him start with the introduction, sharing with us about the many hats. All right, Brother Lovejoy, go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. And first, Sister Alice, I'd like to say I'm very honored to be on the program and a part of any of the work that you're doing. I know that our friendship and relationship goes back almost 20 years. If not a little bit more. And I was telling my wife about the interview that was coming up and how we did work at Catholic Charities many years ago. So yeah, the many hats that I wear, and I'm, we all wear different hats or headpieces and whatever the case may be, but I'm here located in Hartford, Connecticut. And although I wasn't born here, I was raised here. And I am, a son. I am a husband, a father. I am a community activist, a community organizer, a youth developer, an educator. I'm also a crisis intervention specialist. I am an intervener when it comes to working with youth who are at risk. But, all of those hats come under the umbrella of just being a child of God. And so the work that I do on a daily basis, either is with one agency or another, but it all comes under this, I believe, lifelong mission that God has put me on. And so hopefully I can take a few minutes to go into some of that with your audience and have some fun at the same time.
Beautiful. Love it. So earlier when we had a conversation, you shared about the 3 directives and I loved it. Can you just share regarding the 3 directives? Because in that discussion, you shared that it's been 30 years of you doing the work and the way you harmonize all of the hats that you wear so that they work together. So if you can speak a little bit about the 3 directives and that harmonizing process.
Sure. So, my career actually goes back, somewhere between 30 to 35 years now. And I came out of working in corrections. And I didn't stay in corrections long. As I always tell my young people, I wanted to work with people who have life versus people who have life. And there's a difference. And I came out and I started working in after-school programs and youth development programs, and developed this mission, if you will, where I work with youth to connect with families to help develop community. And that has been, my mantra, my mission, if you will, my ministry, this 30 plus years. And still today, I am working in that same method. When I work with a young person, I want to connect with that family because, that's who they're connected to. That's where they come from. That's their background. In order for me to be any kind of effective, I need to meet them where they are. And then that family is connected to a larger family called community or the village or however we want to describe it. And so those 3 connections, the child, the family, the community has really been my work these past 3 decades.
Wow. I really appreciate the way you describe those directives, because sometimes with programmatic development, there is this notion that you can work with children and exclude the family. Some of the programs that I know kind of focus on, put it out as child-centered. And while the orientation and the understanding initially might be to include the family, when they're implementing the program, it somehow move into a space where they're ostracizing the family and
Yeah.
rejecting the family piece and not really understanding the community aspect. So I appreciate the fact that you share that, and hopefully providers in the community that will be also seeing this interview will kind of lean into that. So one of the things, Brother Kevin, that I've been in the field for almost 3 decades, and something that hit me hard at one point is when a youth and multiple folk have said to me, young people, some of the young people in our community don't believe that they will live beyond 16, never mind 20 years.
Yeah.
And when we were having the conversation, you mentioned that your son turned 18, right? And
Today.
you think today, actually turned 18 today. And you said it was, there go I, but for the grace of God. And I remember meeting with a 16-year-old for her therapeutic intervention. And she also shared that it just doesn't seem like they're going to live long. And that is a reality on the street. So
Unfortunately.
I'm going to have you just speak to that for a moment, and then
Sure.
I'm going to ask you about your different roles.
Sure. So, wow. Literally, I am in the middle of that work right now, where, trying to work with young people and give them hope. And I think that that commodity we have lost, especially with all of the many different trials and tribulations that are going on with individuals, families, and community, that we have lost hope. And one of the ways that I described it to someone recently is that, it's I call it the canaries in the mine, the canaries in the mine. And what I mean by that is, in the earlier part of the industrialization of America, they had these mining communities. And the miners, of course, would go in, and whether they were mining coal or whatever the particular product was, they used to use canaries, little yellow canaries, little small, innocent canaries to define whether or not the air in the mine was toxic, right? And so, my question is, have our children become like canaries in the mine, where we see every day, and as a matter of fact, it was just a week ago where I was working on several different cases where we had 5 different shootings in the city of Hartford within 24 hours. And each of these shootings involved an adolescent. And so when we talk about what's going on with our young people, the question is, have they become the canaries in the mine? While we see the maladies that they're dealing with, we see the trials and tribulations that they're going through, is it not just an indication of what the larger society is going through, what home is going through? And unfortunately, our children are the one who are paying the price for what's happening in the larger society.
My goodness, Brother Lovejoy, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the ecological approach and thinking about systems and the individual, the family, the block, the neighborhood, the
Yes.
community, the city, the state, the nation, and then globally. And
Yeah.
yes, Brother Kelvin, you are lifting up something for us right here.
Yes.
So when we the other day, I had the opportunity to watch a clip that you were doing. You were facilitating a conversation with some young individuals, and they were saying goodbye to each other, or they were speaking about the word that they used to say bye. But
Yes.
you moved into it to kind of lift out what that really means. And if you
Yes.
can share a little bit about that within this context.
Sure. And I want to send a shout out to my young men. I know they're going to see this. These are my VIPs, very important people, as you know, but we also use VIP as an acronym that stands for Violence is Preventable.
Mm-hmm.
And, what I'm teaching these young people is that those who are most impacted by whatever the issue might be, should be in the driver's seat. And so if we want to reduce youth violence, which in this case is something that we're working on, I want to go to the young people who are directly involved, directly impacted by youth violence, and turn them, if you will, Sister Alice, into the change agents that can actually address the problem in and of itself. And so it was one day I was in the car dropping off one of my VIPs. And he said, all right, Brother Lovejoy, safety. And now I had heard them say this to each other, numerous times over this 100-day period, if you will. And I just asked them, what does that mean? When you guys say that to each other, what does that mean? And during that particular interview that you were talking about, they outline that safety. They say safety to each other, telling their peers to be safe out here in the streets. They say safety to one another because they're not sure if they're going to see each other again after they leave this engagement. And so for them, being safe out on the street means being vigilant, watching out for danger, watching out for any type of really life and death situation, Sister Alice. We have to put it straight in straight words. They don't feel safe. And, it's not just a feeling. When we take a look at the numbers and the statistics, right? I tell them all the time, that by the numbers, I shouldn't be here. I grew up in the inner city of Hartford, and like many of them, single parent household, my mom, shout out to Miss Lovejoy out there. And, I was not safe. And statistically, it said that I should either be incarcerated, I should be hooked on some form of narcotics, or dead as a result of a homicide, and usually a homicide perpetrated by someone who looks just like me, another young person. And so my young men, when they say safety to one another, what they're saying is be safe out here on these streets, bro. All right. And what I teach them in class is that there's a target on your back. There's a target on your back. When we talk about the larger institutional, the larger societal types of situations, this is all about that type of oppression, right? That is in our community and surrounding us each and every day. And I teach these young men about the three I's, right? The three I's of oppression. And that's institutional, that is interpersonal, and that is internalized, thank you, oppression. And we see it manifest every day, but when they say safety, they're really talking about that interpersonal kind of safety. They're also talking about the internal type of safety also, because the other statistic that I would put out there, Sister Alice, is the mental health issue, and how I see young people all the time who are now self-medicating even more than generations past. And they even say, I got to take my medicine. And I'm like, okay, we on Medicaid? Oh, you know what I mean, Brother Lovejoy. I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. So, safety is a big part of their life. Now, I have taken the word, and I'm working with my group, my VIPs, and we have come up with a campaign that we're working on. And we've taken safety and turned it into an acronym that stands for supporting a family, SAF. Supporting a family empowers the youth. Supporting a family empowers the youth. And so once again, comes right back to our directive. We work with young people to get to the family, to change the community. So it's a safety campaign.
Wow. Wow. Brother Lovejoy. And I say shout out too also to the VIPs and to your mom. Shout out. Now, oh my, I know that as I'm feeling it, others as they will be seeing this will feel it also. Just thinking about the institutional, individual, and the internal oppression, and how racism and oppression manifests itself in our communities, and in it's so diabolical and destructive to our individual, our families themselves, and then within the neighborhoods and so on. So I'm thinking it's so powerful. I love acronyms. When I was at the University of Connecticut Law School, I had to learn so much, and acronym became my friend, right? God just gave me this idea, make everything into an acronym and you'll be fine. So I love acronym. And I love the way you brought that back around to the 3 directives. I love it because it makes sense. It's they spend so much money coming up with models. Over the last almost 3 decades, I've seen Blue Ribbon Commission. I've seen Commission on this and prevention. I've seen so many, but they turn out to be inside of booklets that's in the legislators program development office or administrator's office, but not really implemented in any real fashion. So I'm excited.
They sit up on the shelf.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. And then there's $300,000 more money given to another committee to go out and research and come back to say the same thing that was said 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, etc. So I have a problem with that. But hearing what you're saying, but the big piece to me is that you mentioned that whoever is supposed to benefit from whatever the intervention needs to be a part of the development. And we have been saying this, dear friend Merva Jackson, who was the executive director of AFCAM, African Caribbean American Parents with Children with Disabilities at that time, now being led by our dear friend Ann Smith. Right. She always said, nothing for us without us. And I translate that into conversation about do not begin to conceptualize, design, implement, monitor, or evaluate anything for us without us being in the beginning. Don't come with it and get our buy-in. None of that going forward. What you're doing is exactly the model. The young people are supposed to be involved in the conceptualization process all the way through. And if you're looking at youth development or impacting the lives of youth. So I love what you're saying in terms of that. Beautiful. And for those who are interested in knowing more about this work, Brother Lovejoy is going to share his contact information later on, and it will be posted on the YouTube channel. But I do want to jump right into this piece. There's an aspect of your work that came through very clearly on that video clip. Many struggle with engaging youth. They struggle with building trusting relationship. But what came through was you had rapport, the respect was mutual, there was an energy of deferring to the youth and letting the youth move the process in the meeting. So can you please share a little bit about how you establish what is spoken about a lot in trauma-informed care and approach, that development of physical and psychological safety, trust, transparency, collaboration. Speak a little bit about that, because I felt it watching it.
Thank you. And I really appreciate Sister Alice, because I know that you understand. I know that you have, are well studied and a scholar, in this particular field. And so, to have you witness what it is that we do, and then be able to identify the competencies is much appreciated. I really work from something that I've been sharing quite a bit lately, known as the Youth Development Continuum. And when I talk about the Youth Development Continuum, most folks who might understand youth development understand that at the far beginning, at the entry level point, if you will, it's just youth services. You know, we're helping young people with problems. We're helping them to get back on track, if you will. Right. This is where the relationship starts. Sometimes it might just be a one-shot deal, or some limited time, if you will. From there, we progress to youth development. And so now this young person might be a part of our program, a part of the agency. We see them for a longer duration of time. They consider themselves to be part of our agency, of our program even. We move up the continuum to, so we started at youth services, we moved to youth development, and then we move into what we call civic engagement. And because we are BHCA, right, Blue Hills Civic Association, but you know, Sister Alice, we're also building Hartford through community action. That's one of those acronyms, right? And so we are doing business, right? We are doing activity. We are in the practice of building Hartford through community action. So we engage young people in the work of improving their community through civic engagement from top to bottom, so they actually know this is how your community functions. This is how your government functions. And this is how you raise your voice so that you can have a seat at the table. Now, in order for them to get ready to go deeper into that civic engagement, we move to the next level, which is youth leadership. And at this point, you know, this is where I roll out with my VIPs, and I don't do the talking. By this point, you know, they have come across the levels of competency that allow them to speak for themselves. They're the youth leaders. Okay. And so they're speaking at conferences, they're speaking at workshops. There's a lot of intense engagement. And again, the relationship is extremely important. There's a mentorship kind of relationship between the young people and myself, or those who are in the instruction of these young people. And so now we have youth leaders, and the posture I always talk about with youth leaders is that you'll see them with their hands on their hips because they're confident, and you know, they speak the language of what it is that we're striving to do out in the field and practice. And so from youth leadership, we get to the highest level, and this is where I hope, Sister Alice, that you know, we can get more attention placed on, and that is youth organizing. Youth organizing. And literally, young people are now in the leadership position, not just tokenism, which we have seen so much of, where, you know, maybe we have a young person that comes and speaks in front of the legislatures, or we might have a young person who sits on this committee. But no, when we talk about youth organizing, we're talking about a change in the power dynamic. And so we get our young people to understand that at the end of the day, there are two types of organizing. There's organized money and there's organized people. In many cases, you know, we don't have organized money. And so we practice organizing young people. And that gives them a voice. It gives them a place at the table. They can actually articulate what their issues are, and they speak truth to power. So that is the youth continuum.
Yes, I know the viewers are
taking notes today.
Awesome.
I pray.
Awesome. Brother, give us a practical example. So I did listen to you talking about neighborhood blights and how you brought the folks you together and Barber Street or wherever the different business. Please just take us right there. Take us right there.
You know, one of that I can pull, if you will, down off the shelf. I have a young man that I started a relationship with. I remember when his mother came to our agency, he was 5 years old. 5 years old, single mom. She worked, and I remember the introduction. And I have watched him come up through elementary school. I actually ran a program at his elementary school. He joined the program. So again, here we are starting at the beginning with youth services. And then he came into youth development. And I taught him the student creed. Like we should talk about the student creed. And from there, you know, I engaged him in middle school, and he was part of my program in high school, and he took on internship positions, and he spoke at this place and at that place, and he helped to develop this program and that forum. And today, Sister Alex,
Yeah.
he graduated high school 2 years ago, and he is a full-time employee at BHCA. He is my right-hand man. And he is now walking in the shoes of an organizer.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, I'm just watching the trajectory. That was
Yes,
beautiful. Thank you
yes,
so much.
yes.
Can you share with us the how you actually work with partners now?
Yeah,
So we have you're doing the work with the youth, you're getting them developed, you're getting them into leadership posture,
yes,
and they're having voices to be
right,
and platforms.
yes,
At the same time, there are businesses in the community, there are organizations in the community. You don't necessarily have all the resources.
right.
We're always speaking about, and at least most of the proposals, requests for proposals, ask for collaboration, partnership,
That's
and
correct.
many times individual, and I'm very much aware of this, being in the field for so long, individual community organizations will submit that they're going to partner with A, B, C, D. There will be in-kind services here. But when they come to implementation, that partnership, that collaboration, that fizzles out. And it
Yes,
becomes that internal organization doing of the work.
yeah,
Nothing doesn't look anything like what they want in terms of their proposal. I'm going to
yeah,
tell it like it is, like you said, be
yeah.
real,
Tell the
right?
truth. Tell the truth.
Telling it like it is. Often organizers come into the community, organizations, representatives, system representatives come into the community. They do focus group, they gather the information, they go back, write their grants, send it off, and many times the community do not benefit from the monies that they get. And I'm
Yes,
telling you, I
yes,
hear it. We're
yes,
tired of that, right? And so what I call radical partnership,
mm,
radical authentic partnership, RAP.
mm,
I like my acronyms too, right, brother? Love them. So radical authentic partnership is what we're looking for going forward in 2021. And we're not going back to the business as usual. That's what I'm saying to others. But I know that you already live by that because of the work that you do. So can you speak now, whether it's the Blue Hills um, Civic Association or if it's the Hartford that cares, community that cares,
yeah,
but what do you do around partnership and
yeah.
collaboration?
You know, partnerships can be tough. And what I mean by that is, as you stated, you know, in the beginning, everyone has good intentions, but it is the rolling up of your sleeves and the commitment to get out there when there is funding and when there is no funding. Okay. And so, you know, our agency, BHCA, we're part of what I believe is a very fantastic partnership um, called the Community Safety Coalition. And as you mentioned, we are a part of it, Blue Hills. We have Hartford Communities that care. We have Mothers United Against Violence. We have the MCA here in Hartford, and others who are part of this coalition. And you know, our focus, of course, is making our neighborhood safe. And folks have different expertise, but we come together under that one premise of how do we increase the amount of safety for our youth, family, and community. And what we have seen is that when we bring our resources to the table, when we operate on top of the table and not under the table, all right, that we're here for better or for worse, right? Through thick and thin, all right, we are going to stick together. And, you know, I have found over the last few years being involved with the Community Safety Coalition that we have some high potential in front of us. It has been some hard work because, again, you know, funding can be up and down. Sometimes the relationship can be challenging, but we have stuck together through the hard times. And I think it's all because we focus on this one directive, if you will, and that is to improve our community no matter what. Wow. Communication, right? Communication, big part of it. If you're feeling some kind of way, let's bring it out. Let's talk about it, right? If things change, right, midstream, let's talk about it. So we keep the lines of communication open. We meet often. As a matter of fact, I just got an email where we're going to be meeting sometime next week. All right. During this pandemic era, if you will, we've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings, you know, but the bottom line is at the end of the day, you know, what's going on out there in our community changes. And so, yes, while we're focused on the safety of the community, one of the issues were families didn't have food. And so in 2020, you know, we were out there delivering food. We were out there door to door delivering boxes upon boxes of food to families in need. We brought them PPE, making sure that they had masks and knew how to use those masks. We distributed information about the telehealth. And so the coalition, I believe, for us is a really good example of what a strong partnership can look like. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but we are striving for perfection.
Beautiful, beautiful. So many gems you just shared there. And I feel the transparency, the trust, the authenticity, the willingness to bring the stuff that's under the table to the top of the table. I think you and I had a brief conversation, and I spoke about the fact that there are so many who say they're partners, but they have the meeting before the meeting, that they're not supposed to know about, but we know about these meetings happening. And that can't continue. We're going to call them out because some of the conversation that when meetings begin with partners, the meeting conversation is starting, and we can tell there were decisions made prior to coming into that meeting. Right? And we're very conscious of it. We're going to be calling those out. But it sounds like you all are bringing those to the top of the table. You all are being clear in terms of if there's a challenge, let's talk about it. Let's acknowledge it. But there's respect and dignity and value. All of that, it sounds like.
Integrity for the work as well. Integrity for the work, highly important, highly, highly important. And then, you know, that's reflected in the practice. Our young people, right, they see us working to build strong relationships with each other. And then they too will work hard to build relationships with each other.
That's right. Beautiful. Modeling process here, parallel process here. Beautiful.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's take this into the space now, because the safety component, and there's elements in there that I just want to touch on a little bit.
Sure.
I know you're doing a lot of work around education and speaking at different on different platforms about the education of the young people and what you're finding before COVID, what their struggles were, but during COVID, how it has exacerbated, and the challenges and what you're doing in terms of your programming,
Yes.
that piece, and then anything that ties to economic, like the summer youth employment and so on.
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
can speak to those, education and employment.
This is my wheelhouse, I guess. At BHCA, we have, especially under our organizing and our youth services programs, we focus on two main campaigns, if you will, that are ongoing, and that's our public safety campaign, and then our educational quality campaign. And so, we were one of the main Okay, Sister Alice, that was one of my VIPs. You see that?
No problem, no problem. Shout out to that VIP. So
Yes,
you were
indeed.
just sharing, you were one of the.
One of the main. That was another one. Something must be going on, Sister. I don't know, but we were one of the main catalysts to bring Weaver High School back online. There were literally plans to do away with Weaver High School up on Granby Street. And it was partnerships and collaborations that were funneled, if you will, through BHCA that brought the community voice to bear to, one, make sure that that school would stay open, make sure that there would be quality in terms of the rigor and curriculum, make sure that it would be culturally relevant and so forth. Social justice as a main piece of what's going on in that school, and even down to helping to bring on the new principal. We have been involved on that forefront. We understand that in the city of Hartford, unfortunately, that an A may not be an A. What do I mean by that? And I'm going back to pre-pandemic, right? And I'll lean into pandemic, but this is pre-pandemic. We learned by studying with our young people that unfortunately an A in Hartford may not be an A in Avon. It may not be an A in Killingly or Durham or some of these other suburban towns. And so what we are seeing is extremely important, comes down to the education of our young people. Now, how does that tie into public safety? I'll tell you that when young people don't buy into education, they buy into another system that is out in the community that deals with drugs, that deals with crime and other types of delinquent behavior, because they didn't get a quality education that takes them to the next level of learning and earning. And so, this fight, and that's what it is, this fight has been a two-pronged approach where we are working to ensure the education quality is high, as well as making sure that the safety of the community is important. And they actually tie in and go together. We taught our young people about the school to prison pipeline, another systemic issue. Man, I tell you, it strikes right at the core of your being, Sister Alice, because we see our young people, we see so many of them fallen victim, where, now let's move into the pandemic, right? Where they're not plugging into school at all. No, they're not plugging into school. And it really is an indication that they were probably unplugged before the pandemic. I actually teach a course, and I'm fortunate to be a guest presenter at Weaver High School on Wednesday mornings. And trying to get our young people involved is a challenge.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? They may not show their faces. Most times they don't. They may not even talk on screen. They may text in the chat room. All right. So I have to use all types of creative devices, if you will, strategies to engage our young people. But when you get them engaged, when you get them to see that what they're going through every day is nothing more than a microcosm of what's going on the macro, that's when they start to get involved. That's when they want to know more. They come from muted They come on screen, they start asking questions, and then we can engage them. And so what we see is a continual development of our young people as change agents, change agents. So, you know, education and public safety, those are our two avenues that we are working in and on to improve our neighborhood.
My goodness. So if you can take us now,
Sure.
my mind is just going every which way. My brother, if you can take us now to something you said to me earlier. You
Sure.
said you'll use the summer because some of the seniors, some of them are disengaged.
Yes.
You use employment or connection in the community, the businesses, interns,
Yes.
hoping that they will be motivated to re-engage. Can you speak to that whole process?
You know, definitely, Sister Alice, for a number of years, BHCA has enjoyed the second place position, if you will, in terms of the number of youth that we provide summer youth employment opportunities for. But last year, in 2020, we actually took the first place position, and that we were the #1 provider of youth services, summer youth employment, let me be specific, in the city of Hartford. We did not shut down. No, we did, you know, we went online, we became virtual, all right, but we did not shut down. What we're seeing today, and literally, you know, I mean, like right now, young people, seniors, especially high school seniors, not engaged in school, not having a post-graduation plan. And so what we've been able to do at Current is come up with a career to school internship program. This program helps to get young people involved, right, in the post-graduation process, and gives them an opportunity to also see what it looks like to work in the real world. And we use this as an avenue for them to say, you know what, I want to get involved in that internship program, but I know I got to get back to school. And so we're working in partnership with our high schools in this area to go door to door, to make phone calls, to find our young people, to offer them this opportunity and get them re-engaged in school. So it's an opportunity to increase the educational outcomes. Also put a few dollars in our young people's pockets. That's very important today. To support families. Another piece. And all of that together helps to shape our community outcomes.
My goodness. I know those are all gems. A part of the work that I'm doing is really getting folk who are doing the work of the work.
Yes.
The work of the work of the work of the work. That can give strategies, tips, different tactics, different ways that individuals can engage their youth in their communities. And you're really giving us a lot of gems. So really appreciate you being on this platform with us, brother.
Thank
so
you.
I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. I usually ask everyone who come on. And it's to just wrap in some of the things you've shared, but anything new, you feel free to just share it. It's your perspective on 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
COVID-19, civil unrest, disparities, and any lessons learned. We'll start with those. Personal and professional lessons.
I would say, you know, 2020 has to be studied. I know that we're going back like the Sankofa bird, right? We're looking back to go forward. And we learned a lot of lessons in 2020. Many of them we are still deciphering. We are still reflecting upon, you know, how were we able to continue to keep our doors open, or at least keep our communication channels open? How were we able to service almost 500 youth last summer, how were we able to get young people, to be involved in exercising their voice about what was going on in terms of civil or the racial unrest that turned into civil unrest many a times across the country. We had young people who were out there that were part of protests. They spoke at the state capitol. They spoke at City Hall. They were part of online Zoom forums with senators. They came together in a leadership caucus to develop their own demands that what they felt, all right, as young people being affected by, again, not only the racial inequality, but the pandemic itself. So moving into 2021, we want to be able to take those lessons and sharpen our view so that as we move forward, we're able to work smarter and not just harder. That is our goal.
Yeah.
We want to increase the activity that we have with our young people, but we want to go, yes, wider and do more work, but we also want to go deeper, right? And deepen the depth of connection with them, the teaching with them, and then learn from their leadership. We want to put our young people in a place where they feel comfortable speaking to adults. And then as adults, become partners with them. This is our whole youth organizing model. Adultism is a real thing. Yes, indeed. I had to bear witness, as I learned about what adultism is. Feeling that I'm right just because I'm the adult. That's a mouthful. And so, I learned from my young people. I learned how to listen. I learned from their perspective. I learned to meet them where they are. I learned that what they were going through, and that many a times they're the experts on their own experience. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you
indeed.
so much for sharing that so much. So when we think about the impact, and I know you've had a lot, just listening to what you've been sharing thus far, but are there any other items, so where you think you've made the greatest impact in 2020? And as you think forward, if, let's say, for example, actually, let me stop there for a moment, let you respond to that. Greatest impact, where?
I think, I take pictures of everything that we do, Sister Alice, right? You got to document it, right?
Yes.
Looking back at the pictures, I think it was seeing young people, again, take the lead and be involved in uplifting the community. We had an initiative last year that's going to continue in 2021 called, it was actually focused on community cleanups, but it became the anti-litter campaign. So we were on Barber Street in July with 120 youth. And we cleaned from the beginning of Barber Street down to the plaza, the end of Barber Street. And you should have seen the adults come out. So in the middle of a pandemic, social distancing, we had our mask on, but we had brooms, we had rakes, we had shovels, and we cleaned our neighborhood. And then we went to the next area. And a few weeks later, we did Albany Avenue.
Wow.
And again, over 100 youth plus adults working hand in hand to clean Upper Albany. And then after that, we took it to Blue Hills neighborhood.
Woo!
And so I would have to say the greatest impact was seeing the mobilization of our youth.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, my.
The organizing of our young people and teaching them the skill of organizing so that then they can be in the driver's seat.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to contain it, but I do want to say I have to share an acronym here. It's COME. I came up with this I was preparing to do a keynote for NAMI this past annual, their keynote address. And it's COME. It's coordinate, organize, mobilize, and execute.
Yes.
It's literally saying, for those who are on the sideline, come on in.
Yes.
For those who are in, come on deeper.
All right.
For those who are getting a little tired, just look, the young people are coming alongside, bring them in, take their energy, run with it, come deeper, coordinate, organize, mobilize, and execute the plan. Oh my goodness. And I'm just listening to you getting them to that place and moving from one geographic location to the next. Oh my goodness. I could see the imagery. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what I'd like, oh my goodness, oh man, this is so good to me because you know I love young people. I have 8 children of my own, 5 grandsons, and I've heard and throughout the literature, it's replete with the challenges folk encounter trying to engage young people. So when I hear you being very open that it is challenging, it can be difficult, but it's doable.
Yes.
And so many of the strategies that you're sharing with us, it's just, I feel so blessed just having this conversation.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, my brother. You're welcome. So now I'm just going to ask you, just imagine, it's a quote that you use or something that you can come up with, a statement, but hopefully this doesn't happen, but being in the world that we are in, no doubt we will come up to another crisis, whether we're here or not. But let's say 2035, there's a crisis and some young person or an individual looks back on this video and listen to this interview.
Yes.
And can you say something to them that can help them to not only survive and cope, but thrive during the challenging time that they may encounter? If you can speak to that.
Sure, no problem. You know, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's something that was given to me almost 8 years ago in Atlanta by a good brother who was a friend, an educator, a speaker, an author by the name of Dr. Chika Akua. And we actually brought Dr. Akua here in 2019. And I opened up introducing Dr. Akua. As he explained, you know, that it took 7 years for me to get Dr. Akua to Hartford. And I was relentless because this is my brother and he gave me a gift. And I don't even know necessarily if he knew that he gave me that gift, but it's an affirmation. It's an affirmation. And I like to share it here on your platform. Yes. And I have shared it now with probably over 1,000 youth across the city. And it's called the Student Creed. And it sounds like this. It says, I am a student seeking to be a scholar. The standard is excellence today and tomorrow. I'm disciplined, focused, and on time. I'm organized, respectful, and responsible. I'm on a mission to elevate myself, my family, my community, and humanity. And we close out with Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Woo. So you know what's going on with all up my you know what's happening right over here where I am at. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe.
Thank you for putting this out on this platform.
Yes, ma'am.
So I will ask you one last question and then you get to share any contact information and all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? So when we think about Kwanzaa and we think about the 6th principle, creativity and creative, I know you've shared a good amount with us already, but I'm wondering, is there anything else on your mind about being creative in the way we leave our communities better than we found them, whatever that might mean for you, for going forward in 2021?
So, you know, my young people, they ask me the question, "Oh, Brother Lovejoy, how come you always say peace?" And I say to them, you know, there's a couple of reasons actually, and it fits into your question. Many people that ask me about my last name say, "Is that your real last name?" I say, "Yes, it is." And then I tell them it's actually in the Bible. In Galatians 5:22, the fruit of the Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. All right. So that leads me to this last part. When I was a very young man, probably as old as my son is right now, 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there, I learned an acronym, and it was an acronym for peace. And these young brothers taught me that peace stood for proper education activates creative energy.
Woo!
Proper education activates creative energy. So I have tried to stay a student all these many years, activating my creative energies, activating my creative energies. And so the education of who I am, who my people are, who my creator is, has kept me at peace.
Wow, Brother Lovejoy. Wow, and wow again. Acronyms, bring them on. I would take that and put it on in the description of this video because someone needs to see that and
Thank
hear
you.
it again and again.
Thank
So I'm going to give you the last word, and that has to do with you speaking to funders.
Yes.
When I think about funders,
Yes.
again, almost 3 decades, more often than not, funders, local, national, federal, private foundation,
Yes.
has actually contributed to institutional racism and the maintenance of the systemic, the structural oppression.
Yes.
And they do it through practice, but also through the way they put out requests for proposal, and the way they score proposals that are submitted, to the point that more often than not, the folk who get the grants actually do not know how to do the work on the ground. I'm telling it like it is.
Yes, yes, yes.
Unfortunately, many of the smaller organizations do not have the capacity to have full-time program developers and full-time tech or data analysis individuals on their on the staff complement, if you will.
That's right.
But they know the community. They
Yes.
know the soul of the community.
Yes, yes.
And they can engage the subculture within the culture, within the subculture of the community.
Yes.
Others do not know how to touch subcultures.
True.
And so, if you have the opportunity to speak to funders,
yes,
what would you say to them if they will not retaliate?
Yeah.
When you speak truth, what would that be?
I think that really you've laid it out with bringing truth to the forefront. And if we can just be truthful, you know, just be truthful, that there's a difference between the grass top and the grass root. And many a times the theoretical, many a times the resources are located in the grass top, in the suites, if you will, and they never come down to the streets. We are in the streets. We are in the grassroots. And while some people love to see the beautiful grass top, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty where the real work is being done, you have to understand the grassroots. As a funder, I would say consider the grassroots. Consider all of the work that goes in before the grass becomes grass at the seed level. That's where it has to happen. Let's focus on the least of them, and you will find the best of them. Thank you very much.
My brother, thank you. You are a strong voice for the traditionally disenfranchised and marginalized, dejected and rejected.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're a strong voice for our young people. You're a strong voice for the community, our families. You're a
Thank you.
strong voice, and we need your voice to continue. And as you continue to uplift and affirm and to value and to recognize and to empower the communities and the youth, we will see the return on investment. Everyone
Amen.
is talking about ROI. Look, I send them to you. Look
Thank
at your work, right? Look at your work and let it speak for itself. I will end with this. I have an acronym called RAVE. I rave about my children to others so that they will soon begin to rave about my children.
Yes.
I rave and I tell parents, rave about your children so the educators will start thinking, well, I need to rave about them because someone obviously loved them and so forth, right? Rave about your community, rave, rave, rave. And it means recognize, affirm, value, and empower through education, experience, and exposure, right? So we're going to rave about the VIPs. We're going to rave about them. That's right.
That's right.
Because everyone needs to know about them and what they're contributing to the uplifting of the community in terms of community action and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you
you.
so much, Brother Lovejoy. And we will meet again on this platform.
Thank
Be
you.
well and be safe.
God bless.
God bless you. So we've just had the opportunity to speak with Brother Lovejoy, Kelvin Lovejoy. And I know that he has given all of us many strategies, many tips, many ideas as it relates to youth engagement, partnership, collaboration, authentic partnership. Many ideas as it relates to moving from theoretical, philosophical to a practical engagement of families, individuals in the community, looking at education and employment, ways to motivate young people. And he's given us many different ideas that relates to models that we can benefit from. I'm hoping that you will take advantage and take notes and bring it back into your organizations and think about using some of them and think about reaching out to him. He can be contacted at Blue Hills Civic Association here in Hartford, Connecticut, or Hartford Communities That Care, also here in Hartford, Connecticut. I thank you very much for spending your time with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again here on Around the World and Back with Dr. Alice Farrell. Until we meet again, take good care.